All right, we're going to look at slope-intercept form. But before I get into the definition of what slope-intercept form is, I want to look at an example, and then I want to graph it, and this will kind of help explain the definition in a little bit. So example 1, let's graph y equals, let's say 2/3 x plus 2. All right, and I want to graph this a way that we already know how to graph, and that's using x and y intercepts. And once I find those and then I graph it, then I want to point back to this equation here, and I want to relate the two, and that will kind of pop out what slope-intercept form is. All right, so let's start by finding the x-intercept. When I find the x-intercept, or any intercept, I always let the other variable be 0. So here I'm finding the x, so that means I let the y be 0. Let y equal 0. All right, and then I like writing the equation, function, below it, just to make sure we don't miss anything. And now we're replacing this y with 0. So we get 0 is equal to 2/3 x plus 2. And now we want to get this 2/3 x by itself, so we need to subtract this 2 over. So minus 2 is equal to 2/3 x. Running out of room here, so I'm going to just come up here and rewrite it and finish it. All right, now I'm dividing by this 3, and if I'm dividing, how do I get rid of something? I have to multiply both sides by it. So I multiply this side by 3 and this side by 3. So when I do that, I multiply this side by 3 and it cancels with that 3, and I multiply this side by 3 and I get -6. And this becomes 2x. Now I'm multiplying the 2 to get rid of something. If I'm multiplying, I divide both sides by it. So I divide both sides by 2. -6 over 2 is -3, and that's equal to x. Now remember, intercepts are points, so your answer should be written as a point, -3, 0. And now the y-intercept you got to get a good piece of chalk here that actually works. So the y-intercept, I'm finding the y, so I'll let the other one be 0. Let x equal 0. Then I'll write my function here. Now everything's set up and it's plug and go. Replace this x with 0 now, so we get y is equal to 2/3 times 0 plus 2. And now this term becomes 0, and I'm left with 2. So y is equal to 2. Remember, I want to write this as a point. So I get 0, 2. All right. I didn't leave much room for my graph, so I will erase this portion. I'm going to leave my x-intercept right there so I remember in the meantime. So I'm just going to plot these two on a graph. X-axis, y-axis. And so my x-intercept, I have -3, 0. Gives me that point right there. And then I have 0, 2 for the y, which gives me a point here. And so I'm working with a straight line, so all I need is 2 points here to connect the dots, and off I run. And this is y equals 2/3 x plus 2. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to relate this graph and the intercepts I just found to the equation or function I'm working with. I'm going to write that a little bit bigger and clearer so it's easier to see. This is y equals 2/3 x plus 2. All right, so let's look at this and see what's familiar or what looks the same. So we found the y-intercept over here to be 0, 2. That 2 being a key thing here. We found that to be 2. So we plotted that point here. Now how does that 2 relate to this graph? What did I do to find it? So I had my same equation here, and all I did was plug in 0, which just made this x portion go away, and I was left with 2. So if you see it, great. If not, I'll show you. So I plugged in 0 here to find the y-intercept. So this went away, and I'm left with this 2 here. That's the y-intercept. So when we're dealing with a straight line, which is what this is, something of this form, then the lone number out here, that is your y-intercept. Okay? So it just pops out to you when you have an equation of this form. And later on, when we get into x squares and x cubes and so on, this won't be the case. But these are nice and simple and an easy way to remember your y-intercept without doing the work. Okay, now let's see how we can, see if we can figure out what this 2/3 means or is doing. And pause the video and try to look at your graph and see if you can figure out what that 2/3 is doing. All right, pause it. I'm just going to keep going. All right, what that 2/3 is doing is the 2/3 is telling you your rise over your run. So the 2 on top is your rise, which could be positive or negative, and then the bottom is your run, positive or negative. So if it's your rise, which is top, that's the y's, and then on the bottom, the 3, that's your run, that's your x values. So look at it on the graph. Here's your y values here, going up and down this way. So I start here at this point, and I go up 1, 2. And now it's the same y value here. And then I go over to the right 3, 1, 2, 3, and I land on the same point. So from here I go up 2, and then I go 1, 2, 3, 3 over. That's where the 2/3 comes into play. This is called your rise. This is called your run. All right? And the specific name for this whole thing is called your slope. And it's going to be labeled as m. M is equal to your slope. So anytime you're given one of these, you can automatically just start graphing. You know the y-intercept, you put it on here, and then you can do your rise over run, or your slope. All right, let's look at the definition of the slope-intercept form. So slope-intercept form all right, this is just a general definition to give you an idea of what's going on. So given a line with slope m and y-intercept 0, b, the slope-intercept form of a line is given by y equals mx plus b. All right, and that's slope-intercept form. It's called slope-intercept form because you're given this line, and in that line, it contains your slope and your y-intercept, and your work is almost done, basically. This b is your y-intercept, which it says in the definition 0, comma b, which we saw in our previous example, where this was a 2, it was 0, comma 2. So b here just represents any number that we put there. And then this m, that is our slope. And we're going to learn more about the slope. It's the rise over the run, and that will be in the next video or two. Okay, so what I want to do is look at a couple scenarios here. Pause the video if you need. All right, example 2. Determine slope and intercept, and y-intercept. Determine the slope and the y-intercept, and I'm going to give A, B, and C here. So here's A. Y equals 7/5 x. 7/5 x minus 3. Okay, pause the video and give it a try. And we're just going to keep going. So here, I know that I'm working with a line because it's in the form of y equals mx plus b. So that's a straight line. So I know this portion here is going to be my y-intercept. I don't know if you can see that. That's going to be my y-intercept there. The -3. You have to make sure to include the negative here. If it's a positive, then it's a positive. If it's a negative, it's a negative. So that tells me my y-intercept is 0, -3. And then this 7/5 tells me that's my slope, m. So m is equal to 7/5. All right. 7/5 mean I go up 7, that's my rise, and then over, or my run, 5. And we're going to get into slope more. Don't worry about that just quite yet. All right.